Yeah, good afternoon. This is Bob out here at Serenity Hill. I'm embarking on a somewhat hazardous undertaking today. Appreciate you guys stopping by and joining us. I'm putting in the last my other big dining room window, and it's a 60 by 60, and it's about I don't know about 6 feet off the ground. I'm trimming the end off my thing here. Poor Maggie, she's had enough of being cold. We got yesterday and today are cold and below freezing at night, so I can't do my cordwood. So I'm doing other things. I've been working on some cabinets, and I'll show you that maybe in a little bit here. But I'm working on cabinets, and because I've got all this oak, I might as well build my own cabinets. And I'm working on putting this window in. And this is a 60 by 60 window, and the top of it's just off the ground. So I'm standing on the scaffold here, makeshift scaffold, and I've got to put my caulk around, bead of caulk around. I've already got a 1/4 inch thick shim here, and this is a 60 by 60 opening. The window's a little bit smaller than that, but it's just enough that it kind of centers itself. The 1/4 inch shim underneath it, that lets the whole bottom of the window, it kind of centers it in there, but the whole bottom of the window is, which is what's bearing the most weight, is supported. And so you may see the camera bounce a little bit. That's because it's sitting on a platform on top of a ladder, and I'm on this board. It's a 2 by 12 board, and I've got, I think, about 2 by 14 feet. And so I've got to put my bead of mortar, and I've got a white mortar. I said today the temperature is about 45 degrees, but this particular mortar, it's a quad QSI, OSI, whatever, silicon. It's specially made for windows and doors. But one of the things that I really like about this, of course, this is white, since my window is white. I shouldn't be using this because it says for professional use only. But one of the things I like about this is it says right on it that the application temperature range is 120 degrees Fahrenheit to 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm in my 40s, in the mid 40s. Wish I was in my 40s. So it's good to go. I don't have to worry about it. Some of your older stuff, if you get down in the 40s, 30s, and 40s, you didn't dare use it because it wouldn't cure up right. So I'll just put my bead of caulk around, and I'll especially put some in the corners. And this should just take one. There we go. This is one of those where the seal breaks when you pressurize it. It seems like it always takes a little bit. So I'll get some caulk there in the corner where I got a little gap. And then just put me a bead around. And you don't have to put a real thick bead. I think it calls for like a 3/8 inch bead, which is easy to get because you've got marks on your most caulk. Anyway, has marks on there, so you know where to cut to get what size bead you want. I do notice that with it being cooler, it doesn't flow quite as easy. I'm having to put more pressure and take it a little slower. But especially on the top here, I want a real nice bead, a good bead. But the beauty of the construction that I've got here is these with this big overhangs I've got. Even in driving rain, I don't get water. I don't get rain up on my windows and up on the side of the house. So that's kind of a nice thing. And now, I generally don't talk when I'm doing stuff like this because I like to concentrate, but that's kind of hard to do if you're doing a video. Like I said, when it's 90 degrees out, this stuff flows. You don't have to put near as much pressure, and it flows a whole lot easier. So I tried doing a video of this with a smaller window that I put in this year, but the way the angle of the sun was, it was hitting my phone, and it got my phone too hot and overheated, and it shut down. So I didn't get a video. So I thought I'd try it again. And in fact, we've had some pretty stiff breezes, some pretty stiff rains, and I've stood underneath the eave of the house, underneath this overhang, and been perfectly dry. And got a little gap here. So, well, we can't take this as a master class in how to do caulk, that's for sure. Like I said, it goes on a whole lot smoother and a whole lot easier when it's warmer out. But I am within the temperature range for this, so it's not a problem. Not a problem with the caulk sealing right, it's just a problem with getting it to go on right. And I usually have me a rag or a paper towel, because I'm invariably going to get some on me. And this is all a part of getting ready to do my close-up on the house. And keeps some of the wind and rain off as I do some of these interior projects. I've been kind of dreading this one because it's a pain in the neck, because I have to be up so high and it's a heavy window, and I'm doing it by myself, and it's a two-person lift. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know if it's a caulk or my caulk gun, but boy, it's sure hard to squeeze. I'm going to think it's the caulk because of the cooler temperature. But we can't be choosy about the weather, can we? That's why I chose one that's got a wide temperature application range. Now, along the bottom, you know, I put a solid bead, well, as solid as I could get it, around the sides and the top. But on the bottom, what you do is you leave gaps in it. You put caulk for about 3 inches or so, 3-4 inches, and leave a 2 or 3 inch gap. That way, if you do get any moisture underneath it, it can run out. If you have a solid bead of caulk, it can't go anywhere. So leave a gap there. I'll leave a gap at the corner too, because that would seem the most logical place for it to go. And then I always take the pressure off so my caulk doesn't run. I'm going to check to see if I have any places where I've got a little skip that I want to fill in. Places where it might be a little thin. And You know, I see some people that have got these, Milwaukee skill. Just about everybody makes them. A caulk gun that's powered by a battery, like your same batteries as your cordless saws and drills and everything use. And right about now, that's seeming like that'd be a good idea to have one of those. But I don't do enough caulk, thank God, to do that. Now, what I'm going to be using to put this in, instead of using nails, like I did on some of my windows, I switched over to using screws. These are a coated exterior screw, and it's a wafer head or a flat head. I think they call these cabinet screws. So they fit flat against the wood instead of the typical screw with the kind of the cone-shaped head that would suck in. That way they hold it nice and tight. And the reason I started going with the screws instead of the nails is those nails are where I get my elbow starts going bad on me, and then I can't hardly work for 2 or 3 days. So it's a good thing we got all these pneumatic nail guns and everything. All right, so all right. That was a lot of fun. Okay. To get it down low enough to lift it up to get it started in. Whew. All right. And you know what? I've about got it straight. I need to go that way just a little. All right. All right. Now I've got it in place. Whew. That was a lot like work, folks. And I'll rest easier when I got a couple screws in. Ooh. And I'm going to put a couple screws on the other side. Like I said, this is a whole lot easier than hammering nails in. And I think for doing the top, what I'm going to do is take my scaffold down and I'll just climb up on the ladder. Yeah, for doing the top, I'll take my scaffold down and just climb the ladder because I can't really see what I'm doing from here. But it's in and it's not broken. And I can see my silicone squeezing out just a little bit as I put these in. And I've got the window up in place. I've got the window up in place. That was a tough one. This is a big, heavy window. I did kind of push my screen into the top, but they meant to come out, so I'll just open the window and pop that back in place. But I didn't break it, which is definitely a plus. Now I've got the, if when I was putting this in, I didn't bother, get it in place and then go and check inside to make sure it was even and all that, because my window box is a little wider than the window. And so what I did is I just looked to make sure that I had the same amount of window frame showing on either side before I put my first screws in. And I've got the same amount on each side. I didn't worry about shimming underneath to make sure the window was level, because when I put my window boxes in, I made sure that the window boxes were level. And underneath this, when I put that 1/4 inch shim that goes the whole width of a window, what I did is I used my 4-foot level to check before I put the shim down to make sure that it was actually level, because that would have been the time that I could have shimmed underneath that if I needed to make sure it was level. So it's level, so I don't have to worry about the window being crooked. I know the window is level because the base it went on is level. I know my window boxes are square because I made sure they were square when I put them in. And then I can just center it within, and I've got my window set up right. In a stick-built home where they do rough framing, you probably can't do that, because I can guarantee they didn't spend as much time making sure the window box that the window went in was level and straight and square and everything, because it's going to be covered with siding and drywall. Well, these are visible, and I knew I was going to be putting windows in, so I wanted to make sure that everything was straight and square and the like when I put them in, because I'm not planning on putting trim, at least not right away, around the inside of the windows. Now on the outside I'll put trim. And what I'll do is I'll get some of that sealing tape like you see them use, that will go down over this nailing flange and over the exposed part of the wood here. I'll seal that down, and then I'll be putting some red cedar trim around the outside of it. But I'll put that tape around around to hopefully prevent any moisture from infiltrating. Again, I do have an advantage here, because of being these 4-foot roof overhangs. It can be raining outside. It can be raining outside, a good hard rain, and I can stand under, and unless the wind's blowing from the east, I can stand under this overhang, and the ground will be dry. 2 to 3 feet away from a house, the ground will be dry as a bone. It doesn't even get any water, so that's going to be a real help. I've seen some houses that have a 6-inch to 12-inch overhang, and just about any wind that comes along is right on the side of the house and on your windows and everything. And I don't have that issue, which is, I think, going to help me a lot long term. Come on. I think the fact that I don't have that I got these overhangs and I don't have to worry about water getting on the windows and the side of the house, is going to be really good for long term for keeping moisture out, keeping the wood from getting wet, and also keep me from having issues with water trying to come in my windows, because it never gets to them. All right, that's in. Let me get my scaffold out of the way, like I said, and then I'll do the bottom. I'll set my ladder up and I'll go up here and do the top, instead of trying to stand on my tiptoes on a scaffold, because I really don't want to fall. That just doesn't sound like fun, does it? All right, well, there you go. The last of the big windows in. After this, I got one more 36 by 36 window to put in when I finish that the pantry wall, and then these windows up top. Unfortunately, the way things are working out financially, because I'm going to end up for this winter putting some OSB up over these upper window openings. I had hoped I wouldn't have to do that, but that's what I'm going to have to do this winter in order to be able to get things done inside that I need to make it livable. And then once we get inside here, well, I'll be doing some cleanup on the RV and trying to sell it, and I'll use that money for putting my windows in up above. But that's the long range. You know, when you're building out of your own pocket instead of borrowing money from the bank, and things happen like me losing my job before we had envisioned that job going away, and then Deb's plant closing. That came out of the blue. So she's doing something else, and you know, things like that kind of throw you for a loop. But we you know, you just have to kind of roll with the punches and adapt to it. You can either get upset and bitter and miserable, or you could say, well, I guess we'll just have to figure out a way around it. So that's what we're doing. So at any rate, but it's nice having this window in, instead of coming in every day and looking and seeing this big hole here in the dining room. I've got my window in, and so that just every little bit makes it look more and more like a house. All right, it's kind of hard to see because I've got my plywood cutting station in front of it, but this is the first of the base cabinets that I've made, and I made some raised panel doors for it, stained them with an English chestnut, and this is all oak. The frame and the doors are oak from a tree that I cut down in front of the house. And then the frame of it is just some 2 by whatever material that I ripped down into 3-inch widths that I used to make the frame for it. So this will be nice and sturdy for my base. I'll put a shelf down there in the bottom of it. And there's the window that I just put in, looking from the inside. And it's pretty well centered up in there. Good enough that a little insulation, a little quarter round trim, and it'll look real nice in there. So now I've got a nice 60 by 60 window there in my dining room, and that's the view that will be out there. Of course, I plan to get some of that stuff moved out of the way. Always got plans, right? And then over here is the first of the wall cabinets. This will be to the left of a sink. I haven't stained the frame yet. This is just some 1/4-inch Lewin plywood to cover the outside, and then this is oak that I planed and ripped down from some boards in front of the house. I've got to stain it, and then I'm painting the inside white because I thought it looked kind of nice to have a nice bright white inside the cabinet instead of all dark and gloomy. It kind of helps you to see, plus white looks kind of sanitary, right? All right, so I got the window in. I'm still moving. I didn't hurt myself. I didn't break the window. Didn't break any tools. Didn't break any glass. So the window is in. That's a success. So now I'm going to put another coat of white paint, the second coat of white paint, on the inside of my cabinet, and then when that dries, well, then I'll go ahead and I'll move my tape, and I'll stain the outside of it, and I'll be able to get this off my workbench and get started on something else. It's going to be down in the low 20s tonight, so the upper 20s tonight. So I'm going to hold off one more day on cordwood. I did cover with an old blanket and a tarp the work that I did last Friday and Saturday, so that it didn't get we just had a few hours where it got down below freezing, so I'll be all right because I had it covered with a blanket and a tarp. But then tomorrow will be Wednesday, and there's one day in the extended forecast where the temperature is going to be down to 31 degrees for the low at night, and that's fine. I can cover my work and won't have to worry about that. So I'll be able to get finished, hopefully tomorrow, get finished that section above the window in the laundry room, and then get started to the side of it, and that'll give me less that I have to cover with OSB when I close it in. But my goal is I'm going to continue on with cordwood as long as I've got nighttime temps that aren't going to cause me a problem, and get as much cordwood done on the outside as I can before I close it up. And then it's just going to be lots of fun getting it closed up. I'm going to have to close in up above these eaves, so I'll show you what I've dreamed up for that. And get these upper windows. Unfortunately, the way funding's working out, I'm going to have to wait a little bit on putting those windows in. But hey, that's how it goes, right? Yeah, sometimes we have to make those choices. And then I can close those upper windows off and get my lighting in, get my insulation in, and get closer and closer and closer to being able to move into this thing. So that's what we're working on. I said it feels nice getting that last window in, especially that big heavy one. These other windows, 36 by 48s, 24 by 36s and the like, they're a piece of cake. I can lift those with one hand compared to that 60 by 60. That's a heavy and unwieldy window, and I'm glad to have that behind me, and I'm glad that I don't have any more of those to do. All right, well, listen, thanks for stopping by. I'm going to get to work on doing some paint here, and we'll give you an update in another few days, show you more of that wall closed in, and then I'll take you along with me as I put in my sheets of OSB to close off the two walls I'm not going to be able to get done this season. I just don't have enough time before we get into the temperatures down in the 20s and the teens. The Farmer's Almanac says we're going to have a rough, cold winter. We haven't gotten there yet, but it's not winter. So I'm hoping I can get as much done as I can before it gets to those temps. All right, well, thanks for stopping by. We will see you on the next one. Hope you're enjoying the progress here. And, don't be afraid to get out there and do something you've never done before. Just about everything that I show you that I'm doing here is, if not the first time, probably the second time. I may have done it once so I can get the hang of it before I show you guys the process. But everything I'm doing out here with is pretty much everything I'm doing here is something new. I've done wiring before, I've done plumbing, but some of the construction stuff I'm doing and the cordwood and putting in windows and all this other stuff I've never done before. But there's lots of resources out there to learn how to do things. The manufacturer's websites have instructions for all this stuff. Even the windows, if you bother to read the instructions, they even have instructions on there on how to install them. And on the Menards website, there's there's a link you can click for installation instructions that details exactly what to do to put them in right. So it's not hard. You don't have to try to figure it out on your own. There's resources out there to point you the right way. So don't be afraid to learn something, to do something you've never done before. You can save yourself a lot of money, and at the end of the day, you'll have the satisfaction of going, you know what? I did that myself. All right, we'll talk to you later. This is Bob at Serenity Hill. Looking forward to seeing you again. Bye now.